So in this video I'm going to discuss cell-to-cell communication. So essentially how cells communicate with each other and the whole process of that. So living things, obviously they need to communicate with each other, and cells need a way to communicate with each other. And essentially the process goes something like this. So first there's a stimulus, such as touch, light, sound, whatever, a change in the environment. Then the stimulus activates the receptor, such as nerves in your on your skin, or the hair, like the cilia that you use to hear, or the cones and rods in your eyes used to see. And then it sends it to the control center, usually the brain, and the control center then sends another signal to an effector, either the muscles or whatever, to produce a response. And so there are different types of signals that could be sent between cells. There are three major types that we will discuss: endocrine, paracrine, and autocrine. So endocrine, as you may have heard, the endocrine system, endocrine most importantly, what you have to remember is endocrine signaling or communication has to go through blood. Goes blood vessels and stuff. And it's usually long lasting. And so as shown in this picture right there, the endocrine cell right here releases chemicals that go into the blood, and then it will affect a receptor cell or a target cell, generally a lot further away than most communicating types. And so let me get rid of this. Now another type of signaling is paracrine. And so what paracrine is one cell sends multiple signals to others. So essentially, imagine this is the major cell that we're concerned with sending signals. And so it'll send signals, pretend the dot is a signal to there, essentially the cells all around it. But the key here is the signaling cell. This red cell is unaffected by the signals that it sends out. While autocrine is essentially similar in that it will affect autocrine. It'll affect the cells around it, but it, for example, if we're talking about the situation with this right here, the red cell will also be affected as well. So the key difference is paracrine, the cell giving the signal is unaffected; autocrine, the cell giving the signal is affected. And so now, you may be wondering what happens when a signal reaches the target cell. Well, target cells have plasma membranes, and as previously stated in another video when we talked about plasma membranes, it lets fats such as steroid hormones through very easily. So it lets fats get through easily. But what about the things that are not fats? How do they elicit a response in the cell? Well, there are receptors on the cell. Let's pretend that's the cell membrane. There are receptors and different types of receptors that, so this one will be a ligand-gated ion channel. So this blue structure here. And essentially what it does is there are two locations, or there's sometimes it may be one or two, but there's a location for a ligand to bond. That red thing is the active site, as you can, and essentially it's the place where the ligand or the signaling molecule bonds and allows the signal to be passed on into the cell. And so ligand-gated channels are very common in muscle and nerve cells. And so in this particular instance, when the ligand binds, let's pretend this green thing is the ligand, it binds to it, that allows the channel to open up, and it allows things such as ions located, the yellow dots are the ions, it allows that to pass through and go into the inside of the membrane. And we'll talk about, I'll make another video about the different types of receptors and more specifically other types of receptors and how the signal gets passed on once it gets to the cell.